In the winter of 1892, a prince died. But this wasn't just any death. This was a death so perfectly timed, so conveniently sudden, that it saved the British monarchy from its greatest scandal. Prince Albert Victor, Duke of Clarence, heir to the throne, didn't just die from influenza. He died because he was living a truth that could have destroyed everything. He was bisexual, desperately in love with men, and the royal family knew it. They called him Eddie. To the world, he was the Golden Prince, destined for greatness, the future King of England who would rule over millions. But behind palace walls, behind the gilded facades and royal portraits that hung in every room, he was their greatest nightmare, walking the marble corridors in silk and shame. While Queen Victoria preached moral purity to an empire that spanned continents and ruled over countless souls, her beloved grandson was sneaking into London's shadowy underground world, finding forbidden passion in the arms of working-class men, writing love letters that could topple governments and destroy dynasties forever. This is the story they never wanted you to hear. This is the buried truth that cost a prince his life and nearly brought down the crown itself. If you're ready to uncover the most explosive royal secret in British history, a story of forbidden love, dangerous liaisons and deadly consequences that nearly brought down a dynasty, then stay with me through this dark journey into the hidden chambers of royal shame. Subscribe now, because what I'm about to reveal will shatter everything you thought you knew about the royal family, their power, and their darkest secrets. This isn't just history. This is revolution written in blood and hidden tears. But before we dive deeper into Eddie's secret world of midnight encounters, stolen kisses, and desperate love affairs that threaten to expose everything, you need to understand something crucial that will haunt every single moment of this story. His sexuality wasn't just a personal matter or private struggle behind closed doors. In Victorian England, it was treason against God, crown, and country. Men who loved men faced imprisonment, social destruction, exile to distant colonies, and worse fates that history barely records. For a future king, it meant the complete annihilation of everything he was born to inherit. The palace walls of Windsor Castle and Marlborough House held more than just royal ceremonies, state dinners, and diplomatic receptions. They held whispered conversations about damage control between terrified advisors, frantic letters between panicked courtiers who feared for their own positions, and desperate attempts to find a suitable bride who could make the prince appear normal to a watching world that demanded perfection from its royals. But you can't cure love with duty. You can't pray away desire with royal protocol. You can only bury it deeper and hope it never surfaces. And buried it was for over a century, hidden in classified documents and forbidden archives, until now. But what they couldn't bury, what still haunts the royal archives and secret files today, was the truth about why Prince Albert Victor really had to die before his 28th birthday. Because sometimes, when a crown hangs in the balance and an empire's reputation is at stake, the only way to save a monarchy is to sacrifice the one who should wear it. But his suspicious death was just the beginning of the cover-up that would span generations. What happened next would make you question everything you believe about royal power. Prince Albert Victor Christian Edward was born into a golden cage on January 8, 1864, at Frogmore House under grey winter skies that seemed to predict the shadows that would follow him throughout his short, tortured life. From his first breath, every moment of his existence was planned by committees, every step choreographed by royal protocol, every word he would speak carefully calculated by the relentless royal machine that demanded perfection. He was Queen Victoria's beloved grandson, second in line to the throne after his father, destined to rule over the vast British Empire that stretched across continents. But destiny, as Eddie would learn through years of suffocating expectation, can be a prison more suffocating than any medieval dungeon. His childhood was an elaborate performance staged for the world. Private tutors molded his impressionable mind with lessons in history and languages. Etiquette masters shaped his manners with ruthless precision, and protocol officers dictated his every movement from morning prayers to evening meals. But behind those carefully controlled royal lessons, something else was awakening deep within young Eddie's heart. Something dangerous that would make his nervous handlers whisper in corridors. Something that would make his family desperate with fear. He was different, fundamentally and irreversibly different. And in a Victorian world where different meant social death and criminal prosecution, that difference was his inevitable death sentence. At Eton College, surrounded by the privileged sons of England's most powerful families, Eddie discovered what it felt like to be truly seen and understood by another boy. His first crush wasn't on a carefully selected debutante at a glittering royal ball orchestrated by his grandmother. It was on James Stephen, a brilliant classmate whose infectious laugh and piercing blue eyes made Eddie's young heart race in ways that absolutely terrified him to his core. Late nights in the dormitory became exercises in psychological self-torture as he fought overwhelming urges that Victorian society deemed not just immoral, but criminally deviant and punishable by imprisonment. The royal family began to notice troubling signs in their golden prince. His devoted mother, Princess Alexandra of Denmark, watched her eldest son with growing maternal concern as he showed absolutely no romantic interest in the carefully vetted young ladies presented to him at court functions and royal gatherings. His increasingly frustrated father, the future Edward VII, grew openly angry with Eddie's apparent lack of enthusiasm for his sacred royal duties and his disturbing disinterest in securing the dynasty's future through strategic marriage alliances that would strengthen the crown. By his 18th birthday, Eddie's dangerous secret was becoming impossible to hide from palace staff and royal observers. He would mysteriously disappear for hours during important royal engagements, claiming sudden illness or overwhelming fatigue that required immediate rest. But the palace servants and security detail knew much better than to believe these convenient excuses. They had seen their future king wandering alone through London's notorious East End after midnight, walking through rough neighborhoods that no prince should ever know existed, entering shadowy establishments that discreetly catered to gentlemen with very particular and illegal tastes. The Golden Prince was living an increasingly dangerous double life that threatened everything the monarchy represented. And that carefully hidden double life was about to collide catastrophically with the greatest and most explosive scandal of the entire Victorian era, one that would shake the very foundations of the British Empire. The summer of 1884 changed everything for Prince Albert Victor, marking the moment when the Golden Prince crossed a line from which there would be no return to innocence or safety. At 20 years old, he was no longer the confused boy struggling with forbidden desires in the ancient halls of Eton College. He had become a man who knew exactly what he wanted with crystal clarity, and he was willing to risk absolutely everything he had been born to inherit to get it. London's shadowy underground world called to him like a seductive siren song, promising intoxicating freedom from the suffocating royal protocols that governed every single breath he took within the gilded prison walls of palace life. It started innocently enough, as the most dangerous things often do. Official royal duties brought him regularly to London's notorious East End for carefully orchestrated charity work, visiting overcrowded workhouses and heartbreaking orphanages to show the monarchy's supposed compassion for the desperately poor masses. But these perfectly legitimate, publicly sanctioned visits quickly became convenient covers for his real purpose, his secret mission that could have cost him his birthright and his life. While his unsuspecting security detail waited patiently outside respectable charitable establishments, Eddie would slip away like a ghost through narrow back alleys and hidden passages that most aristocrats never knew existed, making his dangerous way to places that thrived in the shadows of Victorian respectability and moral hypocrisy. Cleveland Street. Even whispering the name sent dangerous shivers through London's most elite social circles and aristocratic drawing rooms. Number 19. Cleveland Street housed what appeared to be nothing more than a legitimate telegraph office where young working-class men earned seemingly honest wages, delivering important messages across the sprawling city. But behind that carefully maintained, respectable facade operated something far more dangerous and infinitely more exciting for men like Eddie. It was a male brothel, a secret sanctuary where aristocratic gentlemen with forbidden desires could find companionship that Victorian society absolutely forbade them to seek elsewhere. Here, in rooms decorated with Persian carpets and lit by gaslight, the impossible became possible for those brave enough to risk everything. Eddie's first trembling visit to Cleveland Street was supposed to be his last desperate adventure before accepting his royal fate. He told himself he was simply curious, that he would look around and leave immediately and never return to such a dangerous place. But the moment he walked through those heavy wooden doors, disguised in common working clothes that completely hid his unmistakable royal identity, he felt something he had never experienced in any glittering palace ballroom or state dinner. For the first time in his suffocated existence, he could be himself, without judgment, without criticism, without the crushing weight of impossible royal expectations that had haunted him since childhood. The young men who worked at Cleveland Street called him Eddie, never even suspecting they were entertaining and pleasuring the future King of England himself. Among them was Henry Newlove, 18 years old with dark hair and mysterious eyes that held secrets deeper than the Thames. Their first encounter was electric, dangerous, and absolutely forbidden by every law of God and crown that governed their world. But love, real passionate love, doesn't ask permission from queens or parliaments before it strikes. And Eddie was falling harder than he had ever imagined possible. Behind the closed doors of Windsor Castle, panic was spreading like wildfire through the royal household. Queen Victoria herself had been informed of disturbing reports about her grandson's nocturnal activities, and the Iron Lady who ruled an empire was absolutely furious. Palace spies, disguised as common citizens, had been following Prince Albert Victor for months, documenting his dangerous visits to Cleveland Street with meticulous detail that would have made Scotland Yard proud. The evidence was damning and undeniable. Photographs of Eddie entering the establishment after midnight, witness testimonies from servants who had seen him in working-class disguises, and most terrifyingly, letters intercepted by royal security that spoke of passionate encounters with men whose names would mean nothing to history, but everything to a prince's destruction. The monarchy was facing its greatest crisis since the English Civil War, and this time, the threat came from within their own bloodline. Lord Francis Knollys, private secretary to the Prince of Wales, called emergency meetings that stretched deep into the night. The royal family's most trusted advisors gathered in secret chambers, their faces grave with the weight of what they had discovered. How do you handle a future king whose very existence threatens to topple the throne? How do you save a monarchy when the heir apparent is committing acts that could land any common man in prison for years of hard labor? Queen Victoria's solution was as brutal as it was practical. Marriage, immediate, public, undeniable marriage to a suitable princess who could provide heirs and create the illusion of normalcy that the crown desperately needed. But finding a bride for a prince with Eddie's particular preferences would require careful manipulation and perhaps even deception on a royal scale. The pressure on Eddie became unbearable almost overnight. Every day brought new meetings with marriage brokers, new portraits of eligible princesses from across Europe, new demands that he choose a wife and abandon whatever madness had possessed him in London's underworld. His mother, Princess Alexandra, pleaded with him through tears, begging him to consider his duty to the family that had given him everything. His father threatened him with exile, with disinheritance, with consequences that would strip him of his titles and leave him with nothing but the clothes on his back. But how do you marry a woman when your heart belongs to a young man named Henry? How do you produce heirs when every fiber of your being rebels against the physical intimacy required? Eddie found himself trapped between two impossible choices: destroy his family's legacy or destroy his soul. The royal physicians were quietly consulted about potential treatments for his condition. Victorian medicine offered horrific solutions for men who loved men, treatments involving ice baths, electrical shock, and worse interventions that promised to cure what they saw as mental illness. The thought of submitting to such torture made Eddie physically ill, but the alternative seemed equally devastating. Late at night, alone in his chambers at Marlborough House, Eddie would stare at portraits of potential brides while his mind wandered to Cleveland Street, to Henry's gentle hands and understanding eyes. The guilt was consuming him from within, eating away at his sanity like acid. He was disappointing everyone he had ever loved, failing in his most basic duty as a prince and a man. Tell me in the comments what part of this story shocks you the most so far, because what happened next would push Eddie beyond his breaking point and force the royal family into decisions that would haunt them forever. But the Queen had already made her choice. Princess Victoria Mary of Teck had been selected as Eddie's future wife, and the engagement would be announced whether the prince agreed or not. The royal dilemma was about to become a royal tragedy, and Eddie was running out of time to choose between his crown and his heart. Princess Victoria Mary of Teck was everything the royal family needed in a future queen. Beautiful, well-educated, impeccably bred, and completely unaware that she was about to become the unwilling participant in the most tortured royal engagement in British history. They called her May, and at 24, she had already resigned herself to the political realities of royal marriage. Love was a luxury that princesses could rarely afford. When Queen Victoria summoned her to Windsor Castle in December 1891, May believed she was simply paying respects to the sovereign. She had no idea that her entire future was being decided in that ornate drawing room, where portraits of long-dead monarchs seemed to watch with judgment as her fate was sealed. The Queen spoke of duty, of empire, of the sacred responsibility to produce heirs. May listened with growing dread as she realized what was being asked of her. Prince Albert Victor would be her husband. The engagement was not a proposal, but a royal command that neither party could refuse without scandal. May felt her heart sink as she understood that her dreams of finding love were dissolving before her eyes. But what May didn't know was that her future husband was desperately, passionately in love with someone else. Someone whose very existence made their upcoming marriage an elaborate performance designed to hide the most dangerous secret in the kingdom. The engagement announcement came on December 3rd, 1891, with all the expected pomp and ceremony. Newspapers celebrated the union, but behind the headlines, two young people were quietly dying inside. Eddie stared at May across the breakfast table at Sandringham and felt nothing but overwhelming guilt. She was everything a prince should want in a wife, but every time he looked at her, he saw Henry's face instead. Heard Henry's laugh instead of her polite conversation about social obligations. May quickly realized that something was fundamentally wrong with her fiancé. He was distant, distracted, sometimes staring off into space during their chaperoned conversations, as if his mind was somewhere else entirely. When their hands touched during official photographs, she felt no warmth, no connection, just the cold formality of duty being performed for cameras. The wedding was scheduled for February 27, 1892, giving them less than 3 months to prepare for a lifetime together. 3 months for Eddie to somehow transform himself into the husband that May deserved, and the king that England needed. But Eddie's secret life at Cleveland Street continued even after his engagement. Unable to give up the only place where he felt authentic, he kept returning to Henry's arms while his official fiancée planned their wedding. The guilt was tearing him apart, creating a psychological fracture that grew wider with each passing day. May began to suspect that her fiancé was harboring secrets that went far deeper than typical pre-wedding nervousness. His behavior became increasingly erratic, his mood swings more pronounced, his absence from official engagements more frequent. The royal family watched both young people with growing concern. The engagement that was supposed to solve their problems was creating new ones as Eddie spiraled deeper into depression and May retreated into worried silence. Because while they struggled with their impossible situation, forces beyond their control were moving to destroy them both. The Cleveland Street scandal was about to explode across every newspaper in England, and when it did, their carefully arranged romance would become a public nightmare. July 1889. A single telegram would bring down the British government and nearly destroy the monarchy forever. Police Inspector Frederick Aberline, the same man who had hunted Jack the Ripper through London's fog-shrouded streets, received an anonymous tip that would lead him to the most explosive scandal in Victorian history. Someone had reported suspicious activity at 19 Cleveland Street, and when the police arrived to investigate, they uncovered a web of corruption, blackmail, and royal involvement that reached the highest levels of British society. The raid happened at dawn, catching everyone inside completely off guard. What police found was not just a male brothel, but a sophisticated operation that had been documenting its elite clientele for months. Charles Hammond, the establishment's cunning operator, had been keeping detailed records of every visitor, including dates, times, and most damaging of all, names and descriptions that could identify even the most carefully disguised aristocrats. Among those records was a file that made Inspector Aberline's blood run cold. Detailed accounts of a young man who visited regularly, always after midnight, always in working clothes, but whose refined accent and obvious unfamiliarity with common dress marked him as nobility. The descriptions were precise enough to identify him as Prince Albert Victor, heir to the throne, future King of England. But Hammond was no ordinary criminal. He was a master manipulator who understood that information was more valuable than money, especially when that information could topple governments. He had already approached several wealthy clients with subtle blackmail demands, offering silence in exchange for substantial payments that would secure his comfortable retirement. The prince, however, represented a prize beyond imagination. The police investigation quickly became a nightmare for everyone involved. Lord Arthur Somerset, a high-ranking courtier and friend of the royal family, was directly implicated in the scandal. His arrest sent shockwaves through aristocratic circles and made it clear that no one, regardless of title or position, would be safe from prosecution. But Somerset's capture was just the beginning of a cover-up that would involve the highest levels of government. Prime Minister Lord Salisbury received an urgent encrypted telegram from the palace. Stop all investigations immediately. National security at stake. Royal involvement suspected. The message was clear. The Cleveland Street investigation had to be buried, no matter the cost to justice or truth. But Hammond had already fled to France, taking with him the most damaging evidence against Prince Albert Victor. From his safe exile in Paris, he sent carefully worded letters to the British press, hinting at royal involvement without explicitly naming names. Newspaper editors found themselves in an impossible position, torn between the biggest story of their careers and the very real threat of government prosecution for publishing seditious material. The cover-up required the cooperation of police, politicians, journalists, and even foreign governments. Evidence disappeared from Scotland Yard files, witnesses were relocated to distant colonies, and journalists who asked too many questions found themselves facing sudden career difficulties that ended their investigations permanently. Eddie, meanwhile, was completely unaware that his secret life had been exposed and documented in files that could destroy his family's 1,000-year reign. He continued his visits to Cleveland Street, even as police surveillance intensified around him, driven by a love so powerful that it blinded him to the danger closing in from all sides. The royal family's desperation reached new heights when they realized that Hammond's evidence could surface at any moment, triggered by a newspaper investigation or a political enemy seeking to embarrass the crown. They needed a permanent solution, something that would end the threat forever, without leaving any trace of royal involvement. What happened next would prove that when a monarchy's survival is at stake, even murder becomes an acceptable option. Because sometimes the only way to save a crown is to sacrifice everything, including the life of the one who should wear it. In a secret vault beneath Marlborough House, Prince Albert Victor kept a collection that could have ended the British monarchy with a single page. Hidden behind false walls and locked with keys he carried constantly, dozens of love letters chronicled his forbidden relationships in handwriting that trembled with passion and desperation. These weren't casual notes between friends. They were confessions of love so raw, so explicitly romantic, that their discovery would have meant immediate exile, imprisonment, or worse. "My dearest Henry," one letter began, written in Eddie's careful script during the summer of 1890. "Every moment apart from you feels like a lifetime in hell. Last night I dreamed of your touch, your voice whispering my name in the darkness we share. I would give up my crown, my title, everything I am meant to inherit, for just one more night in your arms without fear of discovery. The letters revealed the depth of Eddie's emotional torment and the impossible choice he faced daily between duty and desire. In page after page, he poured out his heart to Henry Newlove, describing their stolen moments together with a poetic intensity that would have impressed the greatest romantic writers of the age. Henry's replies, equally passionate and far more dangerous, spoke of their future together in language that openly defied every social convention of their time. "Eddie, my love," he wrote in his working-class hand, "I dream of a world where we can walk together in daylight, where your hand can rest in mine without shame or secrecy." But the lovers weren't the only ones writing letters about their relationship. Charles Hammond, the Cleveland Street operator who had fled to Paris, was conducting his own correspondence with newspapers and politicians. His letters, written in coded language, hinted at evidence that could bring down the highest in the land and reveal truths that would shock the empire. The Palace Intelligence Network, led by the ruthless Sir Francis Knollys, intercepted dozens of these communications and realized that Hammond was building toward a coordinated revelation that would destroy the royal family's reputation forever. But what terrified them most wasn't Hammond's threats. It was the possibility that Eddie's own letters to Henry might surface, providing undeniable proof written in his own hand. Meanwhile, Princess May was writing her own letters, pouring out her growing fears to her former governess. "Something is deeply wrong with my fiancé," she wrote in November 1891. "He speaks to me as if I am a stranger, looks through me as if I don't exist. I fear I am engaged to a man whose heart belongs elsewhere." The royal family's correspondence during this period revealed their own growing panic and increasingly desperate plans. Queen Victoria's private letters spoke openly of removing Eddie from temptation permanently and finding solutions that would protect the crown from scandal. Perhaps most chilling were letters exchanged between government ministers and palace officials, discussing Eddie's future in language that barely concealed their true intentions. "The situation has become untenable," wrote Lord Salisbury in January 1892. "Extreme measures may be necessary to preserve the stability of the realm." As 1892 dawned, the volume of dangerous correspondence was reaching critical mass. Too many people knew too much. Too many secrets were documented in writing that could surface at any moment. The letters had become weapons pointed at the heart of the monarchy, and someone was about to pull the trigger. January 1892 brought a winter so harsh that even the Thames began to freeze, but nothing could match the coldness that had settled into Prince Albert Victor's soul. His wedding to Princess May was just weeks away, scheduled for February 27th, and every day brought him closer to a fate that felt worse than death. The young man who had once found joy in stolen moments at Cleveland Street now wandered the halls of Sandringham like a ghost, his face gaunt, his eyes hollow with the weight of secrets that were slowly destroying him from within. His family watched with growing alarm as Eddie's mental state deteriorated rapidly during those final winter months. Princess Alexandra found her eldest son standing at windows for hours, staring out at the frozen landscape as if searching for an escape that would never come. When she tried to engage him in conversation about the upcoming wedding, he would simply walk away without speaking, leaving her heartbroken and terrified for his sanity. The pressure was suffocating him. During the day, he was forced to smile for photographers, attend wedding planning meetings, and pretend enthusiasm for a marriage that represented the death of everything he truly was. At night, he lay awake writing letters he could never send, burning pages of desperate confessions that spoke of his love for Henry and his growing conviction that death would be preferable to living a lie forever. Dr. Manby Gully, the royal physician, was quietly called to examine the prince after servants reported finding him talking to himself in empty rooms, sometimes laughing hysterically, sometimes weeping without apparent cause. The doctor's private notes described a young man suffering from severe melancholia and nervous exhaustion brought on by circumstances beyond his control. The breaking point came on January 7th, 1892, just one day before his 28th birthday. Eddie had received word through secret channels that Henry Newlove had been arrested and was being held at an undisclosed location. The message was clear. His lover was being used as leverage against him, insurance that he would go through with the wedding and never speak of Cleveland Street again. That night, Eddie wrote what would be his final letter, a document so desperate and unhinged that it revealed the complete collapse of his psychological defenses. "They have taken everything from me," he wrote in handwriting that became increasingly illegible. "My love, my freedom, my very soul. They think they can force me to live as someone I am not, to marry someone I cannot love, to produce heirs for a crown that feels like a noose around my neck." On the morning of January 8th, his birthday, Eddie failed to appear for the traditional family breakfast. Servants found him in his room, fully dressed, but lying motionless on his bed, staring at the ceiling with eyes that seemed to see nothing. When they tried to rouse him, he responded only with incoherent mumbling about being watched, about letters being stolen, about Henry calling his name from somewhere far away. The royal physician was summoned immediately, but Dr. Gully's examination revealed something that terrified him more than any physical illness. The prince was experiencing a complete psychological breakdown, a total disconnection from reality brought on by months of unbearable stress and impossible choices. Within hours, rumors began spreading through the household that the prince was seriously ill. But those closest to the situation knew the truth was far more dangerous than any physical ailment. Eddie was becoming a liability that the monarchy could no longer afford, and his complete mental collapse was forcing his family toward a solution that would silence him forever. January 14th, 1892. 6 days after his mental breakdown, Prince Albert Victor was dead. The official cause was influenza complicated by pneumonia, a common enough affliction in the brutal winter that had gripped England. But the timing was so perfect, so impossibly convenient for everyone involved, that it raised questions that would haunt historians for over a century. How does a 28-year-old man die so suddenly from an illness that typically took weeks to prove fatal? The death announcement came with suspicious speed and finality. Within hours of his passing, royal physicians had already completed their examination and signed death certificates that left no room for questions or further investigation. Dr. Manby Gully, who had documented Eddie's mental collapse just days earlier, now declared that influenza had claimed the prince with remarkable swiftness due to his weakened constitution and nervous exhaustion. But those who had been closest to the Cleveland Street scandal knew better. Charles Hammond, still in exile in Paris, received news of Eddie's death with dark understanding. "How very convenient," he wrote to a confidant, "that the prince should die just as his secrets were about to destroy the monarchy." The funeral arrangements were handled with unusual haste and secrecy. Instead of elaborate state ceremonies lasting weeks, Eddie was buried at St. George's Chapel within days of his death, with a ceremony so private that even close family members were excluded from key portions of the service. Princess May, who should have been devastated by the loss of her fiancé, displayed a composure that struck many observers as oddly detached. In her private letters, she expressed what could only be described as relief rather than grief. "I feel as though I have been released from a terrible burden," she confided to her former governess. The royal family's behavior was equally suspicious. Instead of expected mourning, they moved with remarkable speed to reorganize the succession and eliminate any traces of scandals. Within months, they had arranged for Princess May to marry Eddie's younger brother George, ensuring that the carefully selected bride would still serve the dynasty's needs. Most tellingly, every document related to the Cleveland Street investigation mysteriously disappeared from government files within weeks of Eddie's burial. Police records, witness statements, and any evidence of royal involvement vanished so completely that future historians would struggle to piece together even basic facts. Henry Newlove, Eddie's secret lover who had been arrested as leverage against the prince, was quietly released and relocated to Australia with substantial money and instructions never to return to England. His departure was so swift that even his family was told only that he had found employment overseas. Perhaps the most chilling evidence came from Dr. Gully's own private journals, discovered years after his death. The prince's symptoms were not consistent with influenza, he wrote months later. His death came too suddenly, too conveniently, for natural causes. I fear I may have been used in a deception that I am now powerless to correct. The perfect timing of Eddie's death solved every problem that had threatened the monarchy. The scandal died with him. His dangerous letters were destroyed. His inconvenient sexuality was buried along with his body, and the succession continued smoothly through his more conventional younger brother. But death, even convenient death, leaves traces that can never be completely erased. And the truth about what really happened to Prince Albert Victor was about to surface in ways that would shock even those who thought they knew the full extent of royal power. The truth about Prince Albert Victor's death was buried with him in 1892, but secrets have a way of clawing their way back to the surface, especially when they involve the systematic murder of inconvenient royals. For over a century, the official story remained unchallenged, a neat narrative of natural death that protected the monarchy from its darkest chapter. But in the archives of forgotten letters, in the private journals of long-dead physicians, in the coded testimonies of exiled lovers, the real story waited to be discovered. It wasn't until the 1960s that serious historians began questioning the convenient timing of Eddie's demise. As social attitudes toward sexuality evolved and royal deference weakened, researchers started examining the gaps in official records, the suspicious disappearances of evidence, and the remarkable speed with which the Cleveland Street scandal vanished from public consciousness immediately after the prince's death. The breakthrough came in 1975, when construction workers renovating Marlborough House discovered a hidden room behind what had been Eddie's private chambers. Inside, wrapped in oiled cloth and hidden behind a false wall, were dozens of letters that had somehow escaped the royal purge. These weren't copies or forgeries, but original correspondence in Eddie's own handwriting, documenting his relationship with Henry Newlove in detail that left no room for historical denial. But perhaps the most damning discovery was Dr. Gully's complete medical journal, found in a trunk in his family's estate, decades after his death. The physician's private notes revealed a story far different from his official reports. Eddie hadn't died from influenza. He had been found dead in his room with no signs of respiratory illness, his body showing evidence of what Gully described as symptoms consistent with poisoning by means unknown to medical science of the time. The doctor's journal detailed his growing suspicions and his attempts to conduct a more thorough examination of the prince's body, attempts that were blocked by direct orders from Queen Victoria herself. When Gully pressed for answers, he was informed that the prince's death was a matter of national security and that any deviation from the official cause of death would be considered treason. Most chilling of all was Gully's final entry about the case. "I have been informed that my services will no longer be required by the royal household. I suspect this dismissal is connected to my questions about the prince's true cause of death. I fear for my own safety should I pursue this matter further. But I cannot in good conscience allow this deception to stand without some record of the truth." Henry Newlove's story, pieced together from immigration records and letters sent from Australia, confirmed the conspiracy from another angle. Far from being relocated for his own safety, he had been drugged, kidnapped, and transported against his will to ensure his permanent silence. In letters to friends smuggled back to England decades later, he described being held prisoner until after news of Eddie's death reached Australia, at which point he was told that returning to England would result in immediate arrest and execution for treason. The pattern was clear and horrifying. Every person who could have exposed the truth about Prince Albert Victor's sexuality and his murder had been systematically silenced, relocated, or eliminated. The royal family, working with the highest levels of government, had orchestrated a cover-up so complete that it had fooled historians for nearly a century. But why does this matter today? Because Prince Albert Victor's story isn't just about one doomed royal and his forbidden love. It's about the systematic persecution of LGBTQ+ individuals by institutions that claimed moral authority while committing the ultimate moral crime. It's about how power protects itself by destroying those who threaten its carefully constructed lies. Every pride parade, every marriage equality law, every young person who finds the courage to live authentically despite societal pressure stands as a direct rebuke to the forces that killed Prince Albert Victor. His death was meant to silence the truth about royal hypocrisy and sexual diversity, but instead, it has become a symbol of resistance against persecution and the ultimate victory of love over power. If this story has moved you, if it has made you angry about injustice or hopeful about progress, then please subscribe to hear more hidden histories that challenge everything you thought you knew about the past. Because the truth, no matter how deeply buried, has a way of fighting back. And Prince Albert Victor's legacy isn't his death, but our determination that his story will never be forgotten again. The Golden Prince died for love, but his love lives on in every person brave enough to choose authenticity over acceptance, truth over convenience, and hope over fear. That is the real legacy of his secret life and tragic royal scandal.